In stories, there are a bunch of different kinds of characters. First, there's the protagonist. They're the one whose agenda the story is about. Whether they succeed, fail, or anywhere in between, if they're the one pushing the agenda, they're the protagonist. This isn't always synonymous with point of view character. Some stories have lots of point of view characters, but this isn't necessarily the same thing as there being multiple protagonists. There can be, but there aren't always. To illustrate the distinction, let's look at some examples of both. In the Age of Darkness trilogy, there are 5 point of view characters, each of whom pushes their own agenda. These agendas are mostly complementary to one another, but not always. While you're in each of these characters' brains, you're rooting for their agenda to resolve in a satisfactory way, making them a protagonist, even if it's in a part-time capacity. Whereas in the Inkheart trilogy, specifically in later books, we get to see the points of view of lots of characters. Some of them are protagonists whose agendas drive the story, but others work against the protagonist's agendas. It makes them more sympathetic to the reader, but it does not make them a protagonist. In Hazbin Hotel, Charlie Morningstar is the protagonist. Her goal is to find a way to save sinners from extermination, and her plan is to help them redeem themselves so they can go to heaven.
Here goes. I know hell's population is out of control. It's a bad situation, it's taking a toll. If we rehab these sinners and cleanse all their souls at my Hazbin Hotel.
She doesn't dominate each episode, but each scene, even the ones she's not in, are about the success or failure of this mission. For example, Charlie isn't in the episode 2 scenes that take place in the V's headquarters. In episode 2, she's never met the V's and doesn't know who they are. However, they know about her and try to drive a wedge between her and Alistair in an attempt to weaken Alistair and, coincidentally, bring her farther from her agenda.
Alistair is getting close to little Princess Morningstar, so our main concern now is ensuring that no deal is ever struck between Lucifer's brat and that smiling freak.
Likewise, in episode 3, Carmilla doesn't know that her decision to keep quiet about how angels can be killed will impact Charlie, but Alistair takes note of the fact that this information might be useful to Charlie later.
What was that last thing?
She killed the angel?
Interesting.
Everything that happens on screen comes back to Charlie's goals and objectives. Stories also have deuteragonists. Deuteragonists are characters who have objectives that are not necessarily the same as the protagonists, but that are complementary to them. Most of the characters hanging around the Hazbin represent some flavor of having objectives that are complementary to Charlie's. Vaggie is the most Charlie-focused. But this is only one flavor of deuteragonist. Nifty is here to support the cause, but her goals have nothing to do with Charlie and everything to do with the fact that she feels attached to the stains on the carpet.
Now it's Fred.
In between these two extremes, there are characters like Angel Dust, who wants to get clean and live without sin so he can go to heaven, which is complementary to Charlie's need for proof that the Hazbin works and can redeem sinners. However good this looks on paper, the subtle distinctions between these two goals create moment of tension between Charlie and Angel Dust, as the realities of Angel Dust's job or Charlie's naive expectations inform what they can do in any moment and sometimes get in the way of each other's goals. The fact that they can navigate their differences and get back on the same page rather than continuing to trip over each other's goals is what makes him a deuteragonist.
I'm so sorry, Angel. I promise I won't ever.
Charlie, it's fine. I get it. Thanks for caring about me.
Antagonists get in the way of a protagonist. They don't have to be some big bad evil guy, but their ends and the protagonists are in conflict. Sometimes things can be resolved as easily as pointing out that a shift in thinking can solve the problem. For example, Carmilla wants to avoid fighting at all costs to keep her daughters safe.
Well then why? Why wouldn't you use what you know to fight?
To avoid the very problem you and your little friends are facing right now, I will not invite destruction into my house, on my people.
This is in conflict with Vaggie needing information on how to kill angels, and she talks Carmilla around by telling her,
You didn't pick the fight, but it's here now, and they aren't going to stop with us. You didn't see the look on their leader's face. With us out of the way, it's only a matter of time before they come for the rest of you. They won't stop until all of hell is wiped out, so you can help us make a stand here together. Or you can stand alone tomorrow, and what do you think your chances will be then?
Other times, the relationship between agendas is more complicated. For example, it takes an entire episode for Charlie to convince her dad to help her get a meeting with Heaven. Still other times, antagonists can't be talked around. Sarah is so afraid of falling from heaven, she doesn't even listen to Charlie. Now here's the cool part. There's a fine line between antagonist and deuteragonist, and when characters are defined by their agenda rather than the role they're destined to play, they can move between one category and the other, helper to hindrance or hindrance to helper. In fact, one of Charlie's main tactics is to turn her antagonists into deuteragonists. She's not always good at it, but it's her MO, and she gets better the more she tries. In episode 1, she tries to talk Adam around to seeing things her way and fails.
If they join you in heaven, that trip disappears. You can wave at your farewell. It'll be a happy day.
Let me stop you right there. Save us all precious time.
In episode 2, she brings Serpentius into the has-been and helps him learn to redeem himself.
It starts with sorry.
In episode 4, she tries and fails to talk Valentino into working with her to prioritize Angel Dust's welfare.
I have come to aggressively kindly speak with you about Angel.
And so on. The move from deuteragonist to antagonist is also a viable transition. We haven't seen it happen in Has-Been Hotel, but there's an example of this in National Treasure. At the beginning of the story, Nick Cage is working with some career criminals, deuteragonists. However, once it becomes clear that the answer to the treasure is hidden on the back of the Declaration of Independence, the career criminals are willing to steal it, which conflicts with Nick Cage's values, and their conflict defines the rest of the movie. Antagonists. In some cases, there's also potential for protagonists to become antagonists and for deuteragonists to become protagonists and so on, but these transitions require disloyalty to the original protagonist and usually happen between volumes rather than within a single story. For example, Paul Atreides is the protagonist of Dune but becomes an antagonist in later volumes. I can only think of one story where the disloyalty happens within one story, Ex Machina. I'm writing this observation from Sean, link in the description. The story begins by following Caleb, and after we gain new information and begin to understand more points of view, ends following Ava. This is unusual and somewhat disorienting to an audience used to following one character, but it is a possibility. The ambiguity between these character categories is something Medrano likes to play with, specifically in regards to one character we haven't yet discussed. Alistair defies placement in either the deuteragonist or antagonist category. Despite being the 4th largest character with 13.5 minutes of spoken dialogue after Charlie's 36.25, Angel Dust's 17.25, and Vaggy's 15, we really don't know what his deal is. He was the first character I analyzed on this channel, and despite writing an hour-long series about him, I never got a real sense of what his agenda was. In one episode, he's running around town to mess with his old rivals.
Every day he's got a new format.
You're looking at the future. He's the shit that comes before that.
In another, he's antagonizing the devil himself.
Sadly, there are times a birth parent is a dud. They say the family you choose is better.
Other times, he's the best mentor Charlie could ask for.
Surprised why I knew she could do it all along.
And takes enormous risks to his personal safety.
Cause radio is fucking dead.
What just happened? Fuck.
Only to cackle about how he's going to gain power and become the puppet master.
Once I figure out how to unclip my wings, guess who will be pulling all the strings?
He even acts in contradicting ways in the same scene. For example, he tells Vaggy,
I came here because I love seeing wasteful souls struggle to accomplish something meaningful and fail spectacularly, like you are doing now. Good job.
but responds positively to her reminder that
That's it. I don't care who or what you are. If you're staying here, you're gonna make this work. Because it won't be so entertaining to watch over an empty hotel, will it, shit ass?
Fair enough.
he protects the husband from Serpentius only to half-ass the repair.
Well, it looks as though I need a visit to the tailor. Best of luck, chums.
Wait, you're leaving? Alistair, we need your help. We need you to do your job. We need a wall.
Of course. Can't let my new project fall into disrepair already. What would the paper say?
I don't know what to make of any of this, and that's part of why his character works so well. We're not yet supposed to know. This lack of certainty about one of our main characters is actually baked into how the show is written, and it's really cool. Check it out. I mentioned earlier that Charlie doesn't dominate each episode in terms of the amount of spoken dialogue she has compared to everyone else. She's the character who speaks the most in episodes 1, 2, 6, 7, and 8, but Vaggie, Angel Dust, and Lucifer each have an episode in which they speak more than she does, and about whose character the episode focuses more than hers, at least in a direct way, because, as I also said earlier, everything comes back to Charlie. But despite being the 4th largest character, and despite being in 6 of the 8 episodes, Alistair is the largest character to not have an episode that's mainly his own. This isn't a coincidence. If Alistair were to be the focus character of an episode, his agenda would necessarily be revealed, but he isn't. He gets to stay in the shadows, and his purposes remain inscrutable. Having a character like Alistair, whose agenda is unknown or hard to follow, injects tension and unpredictability into the story. What does he want? Power? Stability? To watch people suffer? Who knows? For a season or so, it's fun to wonder what Alistair's agenda is and how it'll align with or get in the way of Charlie's. So far, we've seen moments of both, but we don't have a lot of information about why he does what he does. However, this dynamic is unsustainable in the long term. We will eventually have to learn more about his agenda, or else always look back at Hazbin Hotel like, Alistair was cool, but we never did learn what his deal was, did we? That would be pretty disappointing. What Vivian Medrano does next with him will make or break his character and what he adds to the show. We've seen characters like Alistair ruin franchises through their overuse, as writers simultaneously try to hold on to what made them fun and interesting in the first place. Probably the best example is Captain Jack Sparrow, who was a side character in the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie and therefore able to be one step ahead of everyone, always working towards unknown ends. This is a borrowed observation from Jenny Nicholson, link below. But then, in response to Captain Jack's popularity, he became the main character, and the things that made him a neat side character didn't work anymore, because you can't have a main character who's always one step ahead. That doesn't make sense. You have to know what your main character is about, or you don't have a story. The ambiguity that made him fun went away out of storytelling necessity, and the motives that replaced it weren't compelling enough for us to want to follow on their own. We were left with a chaotic character without clear goals, and that just doesn't work as a protagonist. At least for me, I can't speak for everyone. In the upcoming seasons, Medrano will need to resist the temptation of trying to sustain the unsustainable. As the novelty of Alistair's being an inscrutable menace wears off, she'll need to reveal Alistair's motives and goals. This will round out his character and replace intrigue with substance. Fortunately, Medrano set herself up for success by presenting us with the bones of a very interesting character. As long as she stays the course of building consistent and deliberate characterization and introduces an agenda that informs Alistair's relationship with Charlie and the other characters, we're in for an incredible character arc from Alistair.